Chapter 1382. Shengguanyu, you and I are both sensible people. Why are we going around in circles and wasting each other's time? The other party laughed, but there was a pressure that couldn't be ignored. You don't really think that you can perfectly hide that thing and no one will notice it, do you? Chu Luiwei didn't say anything. She was sure that the other party was also here for the water droplet. She just didn't know who the other party was. Before coming, she had suspected that the other party was the person who had been lodging in Shengguan Wan's body. However, when the other party spoke, she knew that wasn't the case. Indeed, you used the cicada's shell-shedding technique very well. However, you forgot that as long as that thing is still with you, it will be impossible for no one to notice it. In the end, it was all for nothing. Chu Luiwei was suddenly stunned. Cicada's shell-shedding technique? What did that mean? Could it be that he was talking about her rebirth? However, she was clearly killed by someone back then. Suddenly, something flashed through her mind. She turned her head abruptly and looked at Mu Qinghe, who was beside her. Mu Qinghe was kneeling on the ground with his head lowered. She couldn't see his expression clearly. Only his tightly clenched hands showed that he wasn't as calm as he looked. Countless scenes flashed before her eyes. Back then her death, what exactly was, whoosh? A blood-red whip suddenly flew out of the bronze mirror and went straight for Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei immediately retreated. However, she was fast, but the blood-red whip was even faster. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown in front of Chu Luiwei's face. Chu Luiwei raised her hand and red flames set up a barrier in front of her. Sizzle! An unpleasant smell spread out and was almost nauseating. The blood-red whip seemed to have touched something terrifying and quickly melted. Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix. The voice in the bronze mirror finally changed its tone and was full of shock and disbelief. Then the person sneered. Heh, I didn't expect that after not seeing you for so long, your luck is still as good as before even though your strength has dissipated. There was too much information in his words. Chu Luiwei dealt with it while thinking about it in his heart. This guy. She had actually seen it before? And from the looks of it, he had known for a long time that the water droplet was in her body. But another blood whip lashed out. This time, the power contained in it was clearly much stronger than before. A hole appeared in Chu Luiwei's barrier. The blood whip was extremely nimble and cunning, and it quickly spread out from within. He viciously struck at Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei was alarmed. He was definitely stronger than the exalted gods. If she were to be hit by this attack, she would probably lose half of her life. In an instant, Chu Luiwei's body flashed with a golden light. At the same time, a black shield suddenly appeared on her left hand. Boom! The blood-red whip viciously struck the black shield. Chu Luiwei's qi and blood surged, and she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. A terrifying power wrapped around her body, and she flew out uncontrollably. Bang! She crashed heavily into the wall behind her, and then fell to the ground. Her back almost split open. Intense pain engulfed her entire body. Her face instantly turned pale. Mu Qinghe knelt on the ground, her head bowed even lower, and her hands clenched even tighter. What a pity! That thing has already recognized you as its master. It will take some effort to get it out. As he spoke, the blood whip had already transformed into a long knife. It stabbed straight at Chu Luiwei's lower abdomen. Suddenly, the void in front of Chu Luiwei rippled. The blood-red long knife was silently blocked just like that. Chu Luiwei was stunned. She looked up and saw a tall figure walking out of it. He was wearing a black brocade robe today, and his whole body was emitting a shocking cold aura. His every movement was oppressive and noble, but also arrogant and indifferent. What was even more shocking was that the hem of his robe was already stained with blood. As he walked, there were even drops of blood dripping down. It seemed that he had just rushed over from a fierce battle. The thick stench of blood made it hard for people to breathe. However, Chu Luiwei's heart suddenly calmed down. It was as if with this person around, he could shelter her from all the wind and rain, and she would be worry-free. He raised his hand and clenched it in the air. Bang! That extremely ferocious blood-red long saber actually shattered into pieces just like that, and then it completely dissipated into nothingness. Rong Xiao. The man in the bronze mirror also seemed to be very shocked. "What are you doing here?" Rong Xiu chuckled. "She's here, so it's not strange that I'm here. But it seems that I've disappointed you?" The other party was silent for a moment, and then he sneered. "You're more difficult to deal with than before. It's your people who are too weak." Rong Xiu said lightly, as if the clouds and the wind were blowing. The other party seemed to be choked and unable to speak. Chu Liwei was about to speak, but suddenly felt a wave of fluctuation in her dannan. A faint cracking sound was clearly transmitted into his ears. It was that the black pyramid had cracked open again. There seemed to be something inside that was ready to rush out. Rong Xiu suddenly looked back. Chu Liwei looked up in shock. The two of them looked at each other. For a moment, endless thoughts and longings surged in her heart. They had not seen each other for a while, but Chu Liwei felt that it had been too long. She opened her mouth, and her voice was so weak that it seemed to dissipate with the wind at any time. "Rong Xiu." As soon as her voice fell, countless images flooded into her mind. She closed her eyes and fell to the ground. Rong Xiu's sword-like eyebrows furrowed. His figure flashed, and he quickly rushed over and took her into his arms. Digression: tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1383. Several blood whips came from behind him. Like sharp claws and teeth, they surrounded Rong Xiu completely. Rong Xiu held her tightly in his arms and suddenly turned around. A murderous intent flashed in his cold and dark eyes. Vaguely, there seemed to be golden flames burning. Boom! A barrier formed by golden flames appeared in front of him. It blocked all the blood whips. The two forces collided fiercely. Rong Xiu's shoulders sank, and his feet sank half an inch into the ground. "Rong Xiu, leave her here and I'll let you go today." A gloomy and cold voice was heard. It was like a poisonous snake coiling around one's heart, making one shudder. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled slightly, but his smile was very cold. "After so many years, it seems like you haven't changed your bad habit of daydreaming." Rong Xiu. This sentence obviously provoked the other party, and he immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. "In that case, don't blame me for being rude." As soon as he finished speaking, the blood on the bronze mirror surged. A strong smell of blood spread from it. Immediately, a translucent blood-colored figure suddenly condensed in midair. It was a middle-aged man with blank eyes and a stiff and lifeless expression, like a puppet. He quickly flew toward Rong Xiu. Then, a second figure appeared one after another. He attacked from another direction and surrounded Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes slightly. These two people were actually god venerables who were even more powerful than high gods. "You're willing to go all out?" Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly, and the golden flames in his eyes burned even more fiercely. This kind of special puppet without a physical body or divine body was created by a real cultivator using a secret technique. Once it was summoned, it could only experience one battle. After that, it would die. However, this was not without its benefits. These special puppets could often use all their strength in battle. They could use all their strength at once. This was also one of the reasons why they were so difficult to deal with. "As long as we can keep her here, this little loss is nothing." The other party chuckled. "She managed to escape in the past, but this time, it won't be so easy." Rong Xiu looked down at the person in his arms. Chu Liwei seemed to have completely fainted. His eyes were tightly shut and his face was pale. Her thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was trapped in a terrifying nightmare. Rong Xiu's heart felt like it was being squeezed by something. He hugged her even tighter, carefully lifting her head and burying it in his chest. After making sure that she wouldn't suddenly wake up, he looked up. "Let's end this quickly," he said indifferently. If Chu Liwei could wake up now, he would be able to see that the current Rong Xiu was very different from what he had seen in the past. His handsome and enchanting face was as calm as water, but it also seemed to be covered with frost that would not melt for 1,000 years. No matter what happened, it would not be able to cause any change in his expression. The most amazing thing about him was his eyes. 2 pupils, one bright gold, the other black. The golden flames burned fiercely. The holy light seemed to be able to burn all the filth and despicable in the world clean. The thick ink in deep water surged, cold and noble, and seemed to be able to cover and devour everything in the world. These 2 strong and opposite colors appeared on his body at this time, but it was not abrupt at all. Instead, it seemed incomparably harmonious. "My patience is limited," he said word by word. The cold voice echoed in the entire space, like a saint's ruling. "Bah! What the hell is this place? We've been busy for so long, but there's still no sign of it breaking." In the canyon, everyone gathered here. After several attempts, the silver barrier still did not move. Finally, someone could not help but curse. "That Chuyu is just a rank 9 warrior, and he can enter and exit freely. Instead, so many of us working together is useless. What the hell?" As soon as these words came out, the faces of everyone present turned ugly. Which one of them was not much stronger than Chuyu, but no matter how hard they tried, they still could not open this barrier. If no one could enter, then it would be fine. But there was a Chuyu in front of them who could enter and exit at will. With such a comparison, who would feel good in their hearts? The people of Lingxiao College are really cunning. They left just like that. If Hua Feng and the others were still here, they would definitely go and ask for an explanation. Bang! Jean Di stabbed the spear in his hand into the ground. The stone was hard, and this directly shook his hand until it went numb. This made his already unhappy mood even worse. There must be something wrong with this place. And that Chuyu. He's not a simple person. At the beginning, he only thought that the other party was an ordinary youth and did not put him in his eyes at all. Now, it seemed that he was completely wrong. If he was really ordinary, he would not have been able to snatch the treasure from Jean Lei. And he would not have caused Jean Lei's death. Jean Di slapped his forehead heavily. Why didn't he think of this before? I think it's not a good idea for us to continue like this. Why don't we wait for Chuyu to come back and let him open the barrier directly? I think this shouldn't be difficult for him, right? A middle-aged man snorted coldly. His expression was unhappy, and his tone was a little strange. Demigods and high gods gathered here, but they're not as good as a stage 9 warrior. If word gets out, I'm afraid no one will believe it. Enough. What's the use of saying this now? Besides, Chuyu has already been taken away. Whether he can come back or not is another matter. By the way, speaking of this, do you know the identity of the group of people who took him away before? Everyone shook their heads, indicating that they did not know. Jean Di sneered. I don't know their origins, but I can see that the old man in the lead is a real god. Don't forget, the one who wants to see Chuyu is his master. What kind of person would the master of a god expert be? Just thinking about it sent chills down one's spine. Whoever wants to wait, just wait. Waiting for Chuyu to come back might not be as promising as waiting for him to break through to the god realm. These words calmed many people down. But this was still a dead end. They couldn't open the barrier even if they worked together, and it was also uncertain whether Chuyu could come back. Were they going to stay here forever? Jean Di frowned and looked at the door. What was inside? On the other side, Elder Hua Feng and the others had already left. It was snowing heavily again. The cold wind whistled, and every step consumed more energy. Everyone was silent as they walked forward. After an unknown period of time, Elder Hua Feng looked at the green jade token in his hand and finally heaved a sigh of relief. They're right in front. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1384. Hearing this voice, everyone came back to their senses. Their spirits were much higher as they raised their heads to look. However, the snow in front of them seemed to be no different from other places. Elder Hua Feng quickly realized this, and the smile on his face froze for a moment. He glanced down again. The light spot on the green jade token was indeed not far ahead. There shouldn't be a mistake this time. If Elder Bo Yen and the others are really in front, they should be able to sense our arrival, right? Why isn't anyone coming out? Shiru and the others came with him. Although their auras were still weak, they had recovered a lot. You guys wait here first, I'll go take a look. With that, Elder Hua Feng took the lead and walked forward. 2 other elders followed after him. Elder Hua Feng wanted to refuse, but in the end he chose to go with them. After walking for a distance, the 3 of them stood still and looked at a large open space in front of them in shock. That's right, it was an open space. In this place, the snow had melted, and there was not a single snowflake on the black ground. Even the snow that was falling from the sky seemed to have deliberately avoided this place and landed on the side. It was as if there was an invisible enchantment that surrounded this place. Bo Yan should be here. Why isn't there anyone? Elder Hua Feng frowned and muttered in a low voice. Could it be that it's the same as before? No. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. They're below. The other 2 elders were originally confused, but when they heard this, they were shocked. What? Elder Hua Feng stared at the empty ground. In the dark, he could vaguely sense a trace of origin power surging. Elder, what's wrong? The people behind saw them standing there without moving for a long time and were afraid that something had happened, so they hurriedly rushed over. When they saw the scene in front of them, they all fell silent. This, Shiru, looked at Elder Hua Feng with uncertainty. Elder Bo Yan and the others are really here? Elder Hua Feng took a deep breath. I'm afraid. They're below. Shiru's pupils constricted. It can't be? What's going on down there? Hua Feng should be right. Elder Danqing, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke. Previously, when we were in trouble, those people suddenly rushed out from underground. Rumble. The ground suddenly shook violently. Then, on the originally empty ground, countless streams of light interweaved. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a huge Xian formation. Several figures flew out from within. It was heading straight for Elder Hua Feng and the others. These people were the same as those who had appeared before. They were all wearing black robes, and their faces were also covered with black veils. It was impossible to see their original appearances. Trespassers of the dungeon, die. Elder Hua Feng's heart sank. It seemed like they had found the other party's territory. But at the same time, this also confirmed one thing. Bo Yan and the rest were indeed imprisoned below. Kill! Elder Hua Feng waved his hands and a huge Xian formation quickly appeared. The other elders immediately made their moves too. In fact, there weren't many of these black-clothed men. There were only 6 of them. Compared to the dozens of people from Lingxiao College and the Meteor Sect, they didn't have the advantage. However, the key was that Elder Hua Feng and the others had experienced a long journey and didn't have much strength left. Not to mention, many of them were injured during the journey. On the other hand, although the other party had fewer people, they were all very strong and powerful. Under such circumstances, both sides quickly fell into a stalemate. However, Elder Hua Feng and the others knew very well that this couldn't go on. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Just as everyone was gradually falling into a disadvantage, a powerful and loud roar suddenly came from the sky. This voice contained an extremely powerful aura and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads to look. He saw a snow-white figure breaking through the clouds and fog. In the blink of an eye, it had already rushed from the horizon to the front. It was a white lion. Its fur was as white as snow, and its ice-blue eyes were like the best sapphires, cold and disdainful. It was domineering. Its body was wrapped in a shocking coldness. Wherever it passed, it left a long ice bridge in midair. When Elder Hua Feng and the others saw this, they were both surprised and delighted. Its little snowflake, Snowy's originally fierce expression almost collapsed. With a slip of his feet, he flew straight toward those black-clothed men. Fortunately, its psychological quality was much stronger than before. It quickly adjusted its mentality and directly charged into the group of black-clothed men. The combat strength of a magical beast was much stronger than that of a human of the same level. Not to mention Snowy, who had recently strengthened its cultivation. It sent one of them flying with a slap of its paw. With a swing of its head, it knocked the other one away. The sound of bones shattering was particularly pleasant at this moment. The situation on the battlefield instantly changed. Shiru heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but smile. It seems that Rong Xiu is here. The others obviously realized this as well, and their expressions became much more relaxed. Elder Hua Feng glanced at the two elders beside him. You guys watch over here first. I'll go and break that Xian formation. Okay. Underground. A fierce battle. Golden and black flames flew out and formed an illusion in front of Rong Xiu. That illusion was exactly the same as Rong Xiu. Two divine bodies? The sudden appearance of the two divine bodies obviously shocked the man in the bronze mirror. In the world, he had never seen anyone who could cultivate two divine bodies at the same time. How did Rong Xiu do it? Before he could figure it out, those illusions had already started fighting. Since you've used your divine bodies, I'd like to see if you can stop me with your own body. As he spoke, a few blood whips flew out and headed straight for Rong Xiu. Without the protection of his divine body, Rong Xiu's body was extremely weak. As long as he hit, a huge reddish-gold figure blocked in front of Rong Xiu. It was Dumpling. She spread her wings and occupied almost half of the space here. Those blood whips were directly shattered by her wings. Boom! Reddish-gold flames spread out. The entire space instantly turned into a sea of fire. The stairs began to collapse. Mu Qinghe was still kneeling on the ground. When the flames burned over, the chains on his hands and feet instantly turned red. The scalding heat burned his skin and flesh at his wrists and ankles, instantly scorching them. Terrifying pain instantly engulfed his entire body. At this moment, Rong Xiu glanced over. His finger moved slightly and a golden line flew out. Mu Qinghe looked down and saw an extremely faint golden light flash in front of him. As long as he took a step forward, he would be able to cut the chains. He closed his eyes. Because of the pain, the veins on his forehead were bulging. Then he took a step back and dodged. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1385. Mu Qinghe fell to the ground. At this moment, he was only an inch away from the golden line. But he did not move. The intense pain made him curl up his body unconsciously. Waves of burnt smell came from his body. Especially his wrists and ankles, they were charred black, and his flesh was twisted and distorted under the high temperature. There was not a single trace of blood on his face, as pale as a ghost. Blood kept flowing out of the corner of his mouth. His body was burning hot, but he also felt that his body was getting colder inch by inch. Along with his skin, muscles, blood, bones, it was like falling into an abyss. His consciousness was also gradually blurring. In his blank mind, there was only a familiar, smiling face left. At that time, she was still young, but she had already shown her imposing aura. Even when walking on the crowded street, she was still the most eye-catching one. Anyone who saw her would know that she must have an extraordinary identity. In comparison, he, who was dirty and skinny, was as lowly as mud. When she walked over for the first time, he even had the thought of running away. However, a humble desire surged in the deepest part of his heart, and in the end, he chose to stay where he was. A long time later, he learned that there was a word that could be used to describe the situation at that time. The difference was like heaven and earth. Then come with me? She tilted her head and said with a smile. At that time, he knew that this sentence had decided his life. Mu Qinghe curled up, her head buried in her arms. It seemed that this was the only way to be safe. His lips moved, but he felt that there were flames spreading on his tongue. "Your Highness," he murmured, and his weak voice dissipated between his lips. The surrounding flames quickly surged and completely swallowed his body. A faint light flashed in Rong Xiu's eyes, and he immediately withdrew the golden line. He glanced at the person in his arms. The surrounding heat waves were rolling, but she still showed no signs of waking up. Rong Xiu hugged her tightly, turned around, and quickly headed for the exit. The stairs had already collapsed, but this was not a problem for him. Behind him, the The phantoms were still fighting fiercely. The blood whips had long been burned to ashes in the fierce flames. Rong Xiu struck out with his palm. The seal on top of his head was opened. A ray of sunlight shone in. He turned around to take a look, and then his figure flashed and vanished on the spot. Rong Xiu. A roar filled with anger and unwillingness reverberated through the underground. Rong Xiu emerged from the ground and raised his wrist. 2 streaks of golden and black flames rushed out and returned to his body. Tuanzi also flew out after her. The inside of the cave was pitch black, and one could vaguely see the blazing flames. Rong Xiu raised his hand. An incomparably complicated Xian formation instantly flew out and directly sealed the entrance of the cave. The totem of the Yuntian Tower was faintly discernible. Very quickly, the sinister voice gradually dissipated. Rong Xiu closed his eyes. The other party did not dare to come out. At most, this was the extent of the commotion. Rong Xiu. The person in his arms called out his name in a low voice. Rong Xiu immediately looked down, but found that she had not woken up. She was just calling out to him unconsciously. Rong Xiu brushed away the loose hair on her face, gently held her face, and planted a kiss between her eyebrows. Cherish and cherish. Chu Liyue's slightly furrowed brows relaxed. Rong Xiu carried her horizontally, and just as he was about to walk forward, his chest suddenly shook. A streak of dark red blood flowed from the corner of Rong Xiu's lips. Digression. Yesterday, I went out for an entire day. It's hard to explain in words. I'm so tired that I'm paralyzed. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1386. Rong Xiu stopped in his tracks and tried his best to calm the surging aura in his body. He lowered his eyes and saw that she did not seem to be affected. Only then did his expression relax. After a long while, he continued to walk forward. Chu Liyue lay in his arms. Her eyes were calm, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. Dumpling had already returned to the size of a palm. She nestled in his chest and waited quietly. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. The bloodstains on Rong Xiu's clothes had long been dried by the fire. Only large patches of dark red were left. His steps were light. Wherever he passed, he did not leave any traces on the ground. After walking for some distance, Rong Xiu came to the side of a canyon. This was one of the 9 canyons. And their current position was the furthest one. Rong Xiu carried her and flew down. The snow was no longer falling. The surrounding temperature was much higher than outside. On one side of the stone wall, a huge dragon head was pressed tightly against it. Its eyes were 2 empty holes. It looked as if it had lost all its soul and consciousness. Only the fresh traces on the mountain wall and the ground showed that the dragon skeleton seemed to be struggling desperately to escape not long ago. Unfortunately, Rong Xiu withdrew his gaze and carefully placed Chu Liyue behind a huge rock. Then he sat down beside her. He leaned against the huge rock and bent his long legs, letting Chu Liyue lie in his arms. Seeing her complexion, Rong Xiu was relieved. Then he took out a snow-white handkerchief and slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The strong smell of blood spread. He frowned, worried that the smell would irritate her. He had come in such a hurry that he did not even have time to change his clothes. But now, naturally, he was unwilling to let her go so that she could change her clothes. He lowered his head slightly and leaned against her shoulder. He closed his soul-stirring phoenix eyes and took a light sniff. Sweet, warm and soft. Even if her entire body was covered in messy blood, the smell on her body did not seem to change. It was always so moving. Rong Xiu hugged her with one hand and gently stroked her face with the other. His movements were very light, like a breeze. Chu Liyue seemed to be tickled by him. She muttered something and struggled to get out. Rong Xiu's arm moved and he silently turned her back. This time, he did not dare to move. He wrapped his arm around her waist. After not seeing her for a long time, she seemed to have become thinner. Her sleeping face was so moving. But Rong Xiu knew that she was not as calm as she looked on the surface. His body was aching. The seal. was about to be broken. On the other side, with Xue Xue's help, Elder Hua Feng and the others heaved sighs of relief. There were a total of 6 people, and Xue Xue had already taken care of half of them. The remaining 3 were also injured and their combat strength had greatly decreased. In addition, the other elders and the others blocked them together. Finally, Elder Hua Feng had enough time. He stared at the Xian formation on the ground. It was clearly bone-chilling weather, but he was sweating profusely. His hands were constantly waving as he adjusted the Xian formation. Finally, at a certain moment, the 2 Xian formations were completely compatible. As the subtle fluctuation spread, Elder Hua Feng's heart started to beat violently. He took a deep breath and didn't dare to blink. He carefully controlled the Xian formation. A crack appeared on the Xian formation on the ground. The Xian formation had been broken. This sudden movement caused the black-clothed men to immediately turn around. They were both shocked and furious. However, just when everyone thought that they were going to rush over to stop them, their expressions suddenly changed. Then, they quickly ran in a certain direction. Their movements were very sudden, and the elders were unable to stop them in time. Xue Xue raised her head and glanced at them. No one knew what she was thinking, but she did not chase after them. Soon, the figures of the black-clothed men disappeared from everyone's sight. Boom! A loud sound came from the ground. Elder Hua Feng couldn't care less about those people and hurriedly retracted his gaze. The Xian formation on the ground was quickly dissipating. At the same time, a crack appeared on the ground. The thick ground spread to both sides. An entrance gradually appeared in front of everyone. When the ground finally stopped moving, Elder Hua Feng couldn't help but gasp when he saw the scene in front of him. Even though he had already made sufficient mental preparations, he still couldn't hide his shock when he saw this scene with his own eyes. There was a huge staircase that led downwards. Looking inside, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen clearly. Only the pungent smell of blood gushed out from it. It wasn't hard to imagine what kind of scene would be below. Elder Bo Yen and the others are below? Shiru walked closer, her face filled with worry. You guys stay outside first. We'll go in and take a look. Elder Hua Feng suppressed the emotions in his heart and said in a deep voice. Elder Dan Qing took a step forward. I'll go too. Elder Hua Feng nodded. Everyone stood at the side and waited patiently. Elder Dan Qing walked to the edge of the entrance and suddenly turned around. Jianghu, who was standing behind the crowd, suddenly felt a chill down her spine and subconsciously looked up. He happened to meet Elder Dan Qing's gaze when he looked at Elder Dan Qing. Elder Dan Qing said indifferently, when we find Bo Yen and the others, we should be able to ask them what they have experienced during this period of time. For some reason, Jianghu suddenly shivered. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1387. I hope they're all safe. Elder Hua Feng didn't notice the abnormality in Elder Dan Qing's expression as he walked down. Stepping on the ice-cold steps, his heart actually trembled as well. Suddenly, footsteps came from below. Elder Hua Feng's heart tightened, and he immediately became vigilant. He gathered force in his palm and was about to make a move. In the next moment, a familiar voice sounded. Hua Feng, it's me. Although this voice was a little weak, Elder Hua Feng still recognized the other party's identity. A look of joy appeared on his face as he hurriedly looked down. Bo Yen. Is that you? The footsteps were getting closer and closer. It was obvious that someone was walking up. Soon, an old but familiar face appeared in his line of sight. It was Elder Bo Yen, whom he had not seen for a long time. Elder Hua Feng hurriedly took a few steps forward and went over to support him. Bo Yen, how are you? He had known Elder Bo Yen for so many years, but this was the first time he had seen him so weak and haggard. When he got closer, he saw that Bo Yan's body was covered with several injuries. Elder Hua Feng's expression changed. Let's not talk about this for now. There are still many people down there. Elder Bo Yen waved his hand and said, What? Good. Elder Hua Feng reacted quickly and helped Elder Bo Yen up. Then, he turned around and waved at the other elders. "The few of you, come with me and bring them up." "Yes." The few of them followed Elder Hua Feng and rushed down. The rest of the people gathered around Elder Bo Yen. Seeing him like this, everyone was shocked and stunned. In the entire Lingxiao College, Elder Bo Yen was definitely one of the strongest people. What kind of trouble did they encounter that even he was reduced to such a state? On the other hand, Elder Danqing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw him like this. Fortunately, he was still alive. "Are the others okay?" Elder Bo Yan's expression was solemn as his lips moved. 7 people died. 3 of them were elders of the academy. When the crowd heard this, they were all stunned. For a moment, they didn't know what to say. Elder Danqing was silent for a moment before shaking his head and sighing. "We've done our best. This is already very good. You don't have to blame yourself too much." Based on the situation they had encountered before, plus the fact that they had been imprisoned here for so long, the death of 7 of them was already the best result. Pain flashed across Elder Bo Yan's face. "In the end, I was too rash." He only felt that this was an opportunity for his students to gain experience, but he had neglected the possible risks that existed here. He was responsible for every one of their deaths. Elder Danqing paused. "Jianghu is over there." As he spoke, he even raised his chin in that direction. Everyone looked over with different expressions on their faces. There was a problem. Why didn't Elder Danqing mention anything else but Jianghu? Furthermore, judging from his tone, it didn't sound like anything good. What? Elder Bo Yen was evidently taken aback as he turned his gaze and looked over. Sure enough, he saw Jiang Ziyuan, who was standing at the back of the crowd and trying her best to minimize her presence. Elder Bo Yen frowned and said ambiguously, "You're quite lucky." Jiang Jiwan lowered her head, her entire body stiff, and she didn't dare to move. The corners of Elder Danqing's mouth twitched, but there was no smile on his face. "That's right." Elder Bo Yen and the others struggled with all their might, but 7 of them still died. On the other hand, Jiang Ziyuan escaped alone and actually withstood it. It had to be said that sometimes, the heavens were indeed blind. I've already severed my master-disciple relationship with her. As for how to deal with it in the future, it's up to you," Elder Danqing said. Elder Bo Yen looked at him with a complicated gaze. He originally thought that Elder Danqing would be reluctant. He didn't expect him to be so straightforward. However, it made sense. If anyone was used as a shield by their most trusted and beloved disciple, no matter how much affection they had, it would vanish into thin air. Furthermore, that person chose to betray him without hesitation in order to survive. It would be strange if the person who was betrayed could still be forgiven. "Got it. We'll talk about it when we return to the academy." Elder Bo Yen didn't want to waste any more time and energy on Jiang Jiwan. At least for now, the safety of the other elders and students of the academy was more important. Elder Danqing nodded slightly. Knowing that he had already made a decision, he heaved a sigh of relief. He felt a little disappointed, but more like relief. How could Jiang Jiwan not understand the meaning of these words? Her legs went weak, and she almost knelt on the ground. There seemed to be something buzzing in her mind. "What should I do? What should I do?" Elder Bo Yen clearly wouldn't let her stay. But Lingxiao College was one of her biggest bargaining chips. If she was chased out, wouldn't she lose all her face in the Divine Ruins world in the future? How could she continue in the future? Jiang Jiwan took a deep breath and tried her best to calm herself down. Countless thoughts raced through her mind. I have to solve this problem. I can't be expelled from Lingxiao College." "Xue Xue is here too?" Elder Bo Yen turned his gaze and saw Xue Xue. This title made Xue Xue's mood much better. It proudly raised its head and flew over. Fortunately, it came in time just now. Otherwise, we would really, Elder Danqing sighed. Elder Bo Yen smiled and asked Xue Xue, "Since you're here, your master should be here too, right?" As he asked, he raised his head and looked around. "Where is he now?" Xue Xue pursed its lips. "Where else could he be? He must be by her side." Originally, it wanted to follow them, but its master said that there were some problems here and insisted that it come over to help. It was obvious that he didn't want it to see his dear Yu. Seeing Xue Xue's expression, Elder Bo Yen guessed that Rong Xiu had other important matters to attend to, so he didn't continue asking. He thought that when the matter was resolved, he should come over to meet them. At this moment, Elder Huafeng and the others had already brought the people from the dungeon up. The students and elders looked a little disheveled, and their bodies were more or less stained with blood. Some of them seemed to be seriously injured, so people quickly came forward to help take care of them. Fortunately, there were so many of them, and most of them had survived. If something happened to them, then Lingxiao College would be in big trouble. I didn't expect. Under such circumstances, all of you could still come back safely. Elder Danqing couldn't help but say. At first, he really thought that they, speaking of which, Elder Bo Yen narrowed his eyes as if he was recalling something. Actually, it's a little strange. He paused with a hesitant expression. It seems that someone is secretly helping us. Digression, I think. I have a cold? Tomorrow at 12 o'clock. In addition, the comment section is too exciting. Haha, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1388. Elder Huafeng was a little puzzled. Who is it? Elder Bo Yen shook his head. I don't know, but when we were in danger, it seemed that someone secretly helped us and allowed us to escape. Otherwise, according to their situation at that time, it was impossible for only 7 people to die. But from the beginning to the end, the other party didn't appear, so he couldn't guess. Even you don't know? That's strange. Who would help our Lingxiao College and not leave their name? Elder Huafeng frowned, but he quickly relaxed and smiled. Forget it. I don't think I can think of anything now. Let's go back first. It's always good that someone can help. If we find out who it is in the future, we'll thank them properly. Yes. Elder Bo Yen nodded. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, by the way, why are you here? Elder Huafeng and the others looked at each other. As expected, someone did this behind their backs. Bo Yen and the others didn't know at all. Elder Huafeng handed over a green jade token. Isn't this the one I lost before? Elder Bo Yen took it and said in surprise. We received the news from above, so we came over. But after we came, we realized that it wasn't you who did it. Elder Huafeng put his hands behind his back and pondered for a moment. Until now, we still don't know who the person behind it is. Wanzheng. As he spoke, he saw Elder Wanzheng walk out from below. Elder Wanzheng raised his head and looked over. He suddenly walked out of the dark dungeon. He was still not used to the light outside, which made him squint his eyes. Seeing that Elder Huafeng seemed a little nervous, he was a little puzzled. What's wrong? Elder Huafeng took a deep breath and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not being able to help you look after Chuyu. Elder Wanzheng suddenly came to his senses. What did you say? He came with us at that time, but then a group of black-clothed men suddenly appeared and said that their master wanted to see him, so they took him away. The other party had a venerable god expert. We were helpless and could only watch as Chuyu left with them. Elder Wanzheng's expression changed and he took a few steps forward. Chuyu also came here with you? Elder Huafeng pursed his lips, his throat dry. Although it was Chuyu who took the initiative to request it, in the end, it was still his responsibility. If he had insisted on rejecting her back then, how could he have? Elder Wanzheng's face paled. The man in black, supreme god expert, weren't those the people who had attacked them before? However, why do they want to see Chuyu? Furthermore, he was the other party's master? Even though there were so many of them here, they hadn't heard anyone mention a single word about their master. Elder Huafeng closed his eyes. We don't know either. This is my fault. I'll take responsibility for everything. Elder Wanzheng raised his palm, indicating that there was no need to speak. He took a deep breath and suppressed the surging emotions in his heart with great difficulty. Where is he now? Elder Wanzheng's voice was cold. He spent a great deal of effort to restrain himself from getting angry, because he knew that this was absolutely not Elder Huafeng's fault. But if something really happened to Chuyu, He didn't know if he could remain so calm. Elder Hua Feng clenched his fists tightly, his heart filled with self-blame and guilt. Their whereabouts are mysterious. Of course, they still didn't know. Wasn't it easy for a god of venerables to take someone away and hide someone in this boundless snowfield? The surroundings fell into a dead silence. Everyone knew how much Elder Wanzheng valued this disciple of his. Now that something like this had happened, how could he not be worried? I'll go look for him myself. Elder Wanzheng turned around and was about to leave. Elder Bo Yen shook his head. Wanzheng, you don't even know where he is now. Where are you going to look for him? Elder Wanzheng stopped in his tracks and clenched his fists tightly. Was he going to just wait like this? He couldn't do it either. Elder Bo Yen pondered for a moment and said, "This place is dangerous. We have to leave with the remaining students as soon as possible. Even if the Heavenly Square Cauldron appears, we won't. The news about the Heavenly Square Cauldron is fake." Elder Hua Feng couldn't help but interrupt. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, Elder Hua Feng briefly explained what had happened earlier. So, there's a 99% chance that this news was deliberately released by someone to lure everyone here. If the Heavenly Square Cauldron really appeared, then the Three-Eyed Eagle clan wouldn't use a fake Heavenly Square Cauldron to scare people. Elder Hua Feng paused for a moment before he asked with uncertainty. And from the Three-Eyed Eagle's reaction, the Heavenly Square Cauldron already had an owner a long time ago. But I didn't ask for the details. I think Chuyu might know more about it. After a short silence, Elder Bo Yen smiled bitterly. I see. Actually, we already felt that something was wrong before, but we didn't expect it to be so. It seems that everyone has been deceived this time. I don't know who the mastermind is. Why did he go through so much trouble to lure so many first-rate families here? I can't figure it out. It was really puzzling. I think it's better if we don't continue to participate in this show. Elder Bo Yen thought for a moment and pointed at a few people. Leave a few of you here to search for Chuyu's whereabouts. The rest of you follow the main group back. Elder Bo Yen. A young woman's voice suddenly sounded. Many people looked in the direction of the voice. Luo Shishir? Elder Bo Yen looked at her inquisitively. What do you want to say? It could be seen that Luo Shishir was a little nervous and apprehensive, but after taking a deep breath, she still spoke firmly. Elder, this place is vast and sparsely populated. It's really difficult to find someone here. Why don't I stay and search with you? As she spoke, she glanced at Luo Yenlin beside her. Luo Yenlin raised his eyebrows and felt a little helpless in his heart. However, she was his biological sister after all, so he could only dote on her. He took a step forward. What Shishir said makes sense. Elder, the few of us want to stay and look for Chuyu together. It was always better to have more people. Elder Bo Yen was a little hesitant. But you guys were more or less injured before. In this situation, it was better to go back and recuperate as soon as possible. Who knew what would happen if they stayed here? Don't worry about this, we know what to do. Luo Yenlin and the others seemed to be very firm. Elder Bo Yen was in a dilemma. On one hand, he wanted to find Chuyu as soon as possible. On the other hand, he didn't want the other students to be in danger. Right at this moment, Xue Xue, who had been bored to death at the side, suddenly had her eyes lit up and rushed forward. Everyone subconsciously looked over. A tall man in a black brocade robe was walking towards them. In his arms, he was hugging someone tightly. Rong Xiao. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1389. Elder Bo Yen and the others were both surprised and delighted as they hurriedly stepped forward. When they got closer, they saw that the person in his arms was actually Chuyu. However, Chuyu's eyes were tightly shut and his lips were pale. It seemed that his condition wasn't very good. Rong Xiu's clothes were also stained with dark blood. The thick smell of blood made people feel a little uncomfortable. One could imagine what kind of bitter battle the two of them had gone through. Elder Wanzheng was filled with worry. Chuyu, she's exhausted and has temporarily fainted. Rong Xiu explained calmly. She'll be fine after she goes back and recuperates for a while. Only then did Elder Wanzheng feel relieved. That's good. That's good. However, his eyes were still fixed on Chu Luiyue. It was obvious that he was still afraid that something would really happen to her. Elder Hua Feng came back to his senses. Rongxiu, did you specially go to save Chuyu? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone fell silent for a moment. Rongxiu nodded slightly. Many people looked at each other in dismay, their hearts filled with shock. In Lingxiao College, who didn't know that Rongxiu had always taken care of Chuyu? The two of them had a close relationship. But today they finally saw it for themselves. Rongxiu actually risked his life to save Chuyu. Looking at his blood-stained body, it wasn't hard to imagine what had happened before. But he still brought Chuyu back. I'm afraid it's not an ordinary matter anymore, right? Rongxiu had a cold personality. He wouldn't even look at unrelated people and things. But now, he was actually willing to help Chuyu like this. It was really surprising. Did you see those people who took Chuyu away and their master? Elder Hua Feng asked anxiously. A faint light flashed in the depths of Rongxiu's eyes. When I arrived, I only met two subordinates, but I didn't see their master. Elder Hua Feng was a little disappointed but also a little relieved. That's good too. It's best that he came back safely. In this way, it would be difficult for them to find out who the mastermind was. However, the fact that the two of them were able to return safely made them feel even more fortunate. I wonder if Chuyu has seen the other party? As for these questions, he could only ask them later. Since everyone is here, let's not stay here any longer. Let's go back first. Elder Bo Yen said. Elder Hua Feng suddenly thought of something. Wait. The people around him looked at him. Elder Hua Feng hesitated. If we leave just like that, then what should we do about the place where Chuyu broke through earlier? If he guessed correctly, those people should still be waiting there. I wasn't worried about anything else. I just didn't know if Chuyu had left anything over there. After all, he stayed there for quite a long time. In reality, a few days was not a long time. However, compared to others who were unable to enter, it was indeed special. Every time he thought of the scene where Chuyu was able to enter and exit freely, and the other top experts were still unable to open it even after working together, a strange and absurd feeling would always surge in Elder Hua Feng's heart. Rongxiu's lips curved up slightly. Elder Hua Feng, don't worry. Based on her personality, how could she leave such a hidden danger behind? Moreover, that place was already, he paused. We'll just go back. There's nothing to see here. Rongxiu's tone was always clear and indifferent, but it carried a noble aura that no one could disobey. Only then did Elder Hua Feng relax. Since you've already said so, then, shall we leave now? Rongxiu hugged her even tighter and looked down at her. Yes. They had to go back as soon as possible. Just like that, the hundreds of people from Lingxiao College embarked on their return journey. Fortunately, the journey back was very smooth, and they did not encounter any more trouble or danger. As long as they followed the established path back to the teleportation formation, they would be able to leave directly. The road was still covered in thick snow. Most people found it difficult to walk. Therefore, everyone's speed was not considered fast. From time to time, people would turn to look at Rongxiu. Compared to the hardships of others, Rongxiu seemed to be very relaxed. Although there were messy and dirty bloodstains on his body, the road was obviously not a problem for him. In fact, he was carrying someone in his arms. Many people sighed in their hearts. The strong were indeed not comparable to ordinary people. After walking for a while, Elder Wanzheng finally couldn't help but ask, Rongxiu, are you tired? I see that you're injured too. It's quite tiring to carry Chuyu like this. How about I carry him for a while? Rongxiu's lips curved slightly, but he had no intention of letting go. Thank you, Elder. I'll do it. Elder Wanzheng felt that it was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was strange, so he could only nod. If you need help, just let me know. Rongxiu nodded. Although the small episode on their side was quickly covered up, it still attracted the attention of many people. Some of the students behind couldn't help but whisper. Previously, there were rumors that Chuyu and Rongxiu had a good relationship, but I didn't think much of it. Today, I finally saw it. How is this good relationship? He's taking care of him as if he's his own brother. Teske, even if it's his own brother, he might not be like this, right? Hasn't Rong Xiu always been obsessed with cleanliness and doesn't like to be close to people? Now it seems it's just different people. I really don't know what kind of luck that Chu Yu has to be able to be favored by Rong Xiu so much. I heard that the two of them actually know each other, so their relationship is so good. Think about it, if it wasn't for this, would Chu Yu have risked his life to help Rong Xiu block a blow? Rong Xiu wouldn't easily treat someone so well, right? Chu Yu's origin is also quite mysterious. I've never heard of his background, maybe? Everyone was discussing and making all kinds of guesses. Obviously, today's matter had indeed given them a huge shock. I think so. Senior Rong Xiu has been in the academy for several years, right? I've never heard of him taking care of anyone like this. Even when it came to Jiang Ziyuan back then, he had never spoken up for her in public. Look at you. The difference in treatment is like heaven and earth. That's right. I used to think that he treated everyone like that, but who knew? Hey, Jiang Jiwan always said that she and Senior Rong Xiu were childhood sweethearts, and even said that she was the first candidate for the princess of the Yuntian Tower. But today, Senior Rong Xiu didn't even look at her. If there's really something between them, why would Senior Rong Xiu be so indifferent when he saw Jiang Jiwan's injured appearance? I think, before, it was just Jiang Jiwan's unrequited love. Jiang Jiwan has already broken off her master-disciple relationship with Elder Danqing. I think this time when she goes back, I'm afraid she won't even be able to stay in the academy? A group of people roared with laughter, and some of them turned their heads to admire Jiang Jiwan's expression. Jiang Jiwan's chest and abdomen seemed to be surging with magma, as if it would suddenly erupt in the next moment. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1390. But she still endured it. Now, everyone was waiting to see her make a fool of herself. Those who tried to curry favor with her in the past were now avoiding her as if there was something terrifying about her. Jiang Jiwan was furious, but she could only swallow her anger. She knew that her situation had reached the worst. If she didn't think of a way to get Elder Danqing to retract his order, then what awaited her when she returned was to be expelled from the academy. Xing, what's wrong? You don't look too good. Liang Xiaoxiao walked over and seemed to be very worried. As she spoke, she sized up Jiang Jiwan from head to toe, as if she was admiring her sorry state. Jiang Jiwan sneered in her heart. If Liang Xiaoxiao really cared about her, she would have come over long ago. Why wait until now? She was just making a fool of herself. Suddenly, Jiang Jiwan recalled something from before, and her expression changed slightly. She squeezed out a smile. Don't worry, I'm fine. But you... Xiaoxiao, so many first-rate families and clans are here this time. Your Liang family should be here too, right? Liang Xiaoxiao was stunned. She didn't expect her to suddenly mention this. I don't think so. Previously, she had sent a letter to her family. Her father said that he was busy with some matters in the clan recently and couldn't get away, so he didn't plan to get involved in this mess. But, did you see our family before? Liang Xiaoxiao immediately became alert. Jiang Jiwan laughed. No, I'm just asking casually. After all, this place is quite dangerous. Once you're here, it won't be so easy to leave. Liang Xiaoxiao's brows furrowed quickly. For some reason, Jiang Jiwan's smile made her feel inexplicably awkward and uneasy. She was no longer in the mood to continue teasing her. After a few perfunctory words, she turned around and left. Looking at her back view, the smile on Jiang Jiwan's face slowly turned cold. It seemed that the Liang family hadn't received the news yet. At the very least, Liang Xiaoxiao still didn't know. Liang Xiaokong was the legitimate son of the Liang family. Now that he had died for no reason, the Liang family would definitely not let this matter rest. Thinking of this, she quickly took a few steps forward. Elder Huafeng, I have something to say to you. Elder Huafeng was originally talking to Elder Bo Yen and the others, but when he heard this, he turned to look at her. What? Jiang Jiwan's hands were clasped together as if she was a little nervous. This will only take up a little of your time. Many people in the surroundings looked over curiously. Elder Hua Feng pondered for a moment before walking over. Jiang Jiwan walked to the side. The two of them walked out of the crowd. Elder Hua Feng simply set up a barrier to isolate the conversation between the two from the outside world. Can you tell me now? Elder Hua Feng knew that Jiang Jiwan suddenly looked for him because it must be something important, so he was a little patient. He wanted to see what else Jiang Jiwan was going to do. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips. She did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Elder, I want to ask you for a favor. Can you help persuade my master to take back his order? Elder Hua Feng almost thought that he had heard wrongly. What did you say? Was Jiang Jiwan mistaken? She actually asked him to plead for leniency? Jiang Jiwan clasped her hands together with a sincere expression. Her eyes were already filled with tears. I beg of you. Master refuses to listen to my explanation and doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Only you can help me. Elder Hua Feng wanted to laugh. He shook his head. Dan Qing is your master. He has been doting on you for the past few years. This time, he did this because you were in the wrong first. He has always been stubborn. Once he has made up his mind, he will never change it. Even if I persuade him, it will be useless. Although he didn't know what Jiang Jiwan had done from the reaction of Dan Qing, Bo Yan, and the others, it was most likely an unforgivable sin. He didn't like Jiang Jiwan to begin with, so why would he be willing to speak up for her? Jiang Jiwan, you have to know that once you make a mistake, you won't have the chance to start over. With that, Elder Hua Feng turned around and was about to leave. There was no point in continuing to chat with Jiang Jiwan, because until now, she still didn't repent and tried to use all sorts of methods to continue staying in the academy. This kind of person was unreliable. Elder. Seeing Elder Hua Feng's firm attitude, Jiang Jiwan made up her mind. Elder Hua Feng turned around and was stunned when he saw Jiang Jiwan's gaze. In the eyes of outsiders, she still looked weak and pitiful. However, only Elder Hua Feng, who was standing close to her, could see the determination and ruthlessness in her eyes. I chatted with Liang Xiaoxiao just now. She said that the Liang family didn't send anyone this time. Elder Hua Feng suddenly realized something. If they know that Liang Xiaokong died here, and it's our Lingxiao College's tacit approval, then how will they react? Jiang Jiwan smiled. No matter what, the Liang family is a first-tier family. Unless it's absolutely necessary, the academy shouldn't want to fall out with them, right? Elder Hua Feng finally understood Jiang Jiwan's intentions. He couldn't help but sneer. Jiang Jiwan, do you know what you're doing? Threatening an elder was a serious crime. However, Jiang Jiwan didn't seem to be afraid at all and smiled gently. Do you think I'll still care about this if I'm expelled from the academy? At most, she would fight to the death. Elder Hua Feng stared at her for a long time. Dan Qing is really blind. He actually took you in as his disciple and doted on you for so many years. Jiang Jiwan's smile didn't change. Can you help me? Chu Luiyue felt as if he had fallen into a long dream. Countless images flashed through his mind. He had seen them before and never seen them before. He had heard of them before and never heard of them before. The chaotic memories surged out, almost giving her a splitting headache. It hurts, she frowned slightly and said softly. Rong Xiu looked at her, and his heart felt as if it had been rubbed by something. He bent his head slightly and wanted to kiss her, but he stopped just as he was about to do so. I almost forgot that there are these people around. After hesitating for a moment, he gently pressed his forehead against hers. The surroundings suddenly became much quieter. Elder Bo Yan looked at him with a panicked expression, his face full of confusion. Rong Xiu raised his head with a calm expression. She seems to have a fever. Digression, the cold is so uncomfortable. I want to lie down like a corpse. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 1391. Elder Bo Yan's expression became very strange. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with his words, but why did he feel that something was wrong? No matter how concerned he was, his actions and posture. Wasn't it a little too intimate? If a man and a man acted like this, anyone who saw it, Elder Bo Yen felt a little flustered. This, Rong Xiu only said that he had known Chu Yu for a long time. At that time, he only treated the two of them as friends and Rong Xiu treated him as his younger brother. But now, Rong Xiu raised his eyes slightly and glanced over. Elder Bo Yen, do you have the clear breeze pill? Elder Bo Yen came back to his senses, took out a jade bottle and handed it over. Seeing that Rong Xiu couldn't do anything else, he took out the pill and fed it to Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue's lips were tightly shut, and she couldn't send the pill in no matter what. Rong Xiu lightly patted her shoulder and softly said, "Don't worry. Be good and eat the pill." Chu Liyue snuggled into his embrace, but in the end, she obediently opened her mouth. Elder Bo Yen quickly fed the pill in. The clear breeze pill melted in her mouth, and Chu Liyue swallowed the pill with her eyes still closed. The entire process was as smooth as flowing water and couldn't be more natural. Elder Bo Yen retracted his hand and watched from the side, becoming more and more frightened. When has Rong Xiu ever been so gentle and kind to anyone? Previously, Rong Xiu insisted on carrying Chu Yu back and personally taking care of him. He thought that it was because Chu Yu had blocked that attack for him, and he did it out of guilt and compensation. But now, in his impression, Rong Xiu had never been close to women. A ridiculous thought appeared in Elder Bo Yan's mind. The thought made his heart beat wildly. He quickly glanced at Rong Xiu and immediately retracted his gaze. Forget it. It's better not to ask about these things. At the very least, he shouldn't have such a strong tolerance right now. However, in the future, his attitude towards Chu Yu would probably have to change. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. Of course, he could guess what Elder Bo Yen and the others would think when they saw this scene, but he didn't care. Bo Yen. Painting. At this moment, Elder Hua Feng had finished his conversation with Jianghu. Bo Yen and Elder Danqing turned to look at him. Their gazes swept past Jianghu, who was left behind. In fact, they also wanted to know what Hua Feng and Jianghu talked about. I have something that I need to tell you all. Elder Hua Feng's expression was solemn. This caused the hearts of Elder Bo Yen and the others to sink. What happened? Elder Hua Feng took a deep breath and seemed to be in a difficult position. Jianghu, who was standing not far away, stopped in her tracks. She looked up with pride and anticipation in her eyes. Very good. As long as Elder Hua Feng was willing to help, everything would be fine. Thinking that she had avoided a calamity, Jianghu couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. At this moment, Elder Hua Feng suddenly turned around and waved at a certain direction in the crowd. Liang Xiaoxiao, come over here. The smile on Jiang Ziyuan's face that hadn't fully spread out froze. Uneasiness surged in her heart. Why did Elder Hua Feng suddenly call Liang Xiaoxiao over? This had nothing to do with her at all. Liang Xiaoxiao was also a little confused, but she still walked forward with everyone's gazes. She first greeted each of the elders one by one, then asked with a blank expression, "What happened?" Elder Hua Feng, are you looking for me? Elder Hua Feng nodded. There's something that I need to tell you first. The surroundings quieted down. Jiang Jiwan's heart fell into an abyss. However, everything had already begun to develop in a direction that was out of her control. Your brother, Liang Xiaokong, brought people here earlier. Elder Hua Feng said very straightforwardly. Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes widened slightly. My third brother is here? Didn't Daddy say that he wouldn't get involved in this matter? Could it be that third brother secretly brought people here? He has always been a little radical. Recently, the other disciples in the family have also performed well. He should be anxious? This does seem like something he would do. Elder Hua Feng nodded slightly. About a few days ago, when we just arrived at the canyon, we happened to meet him. At that time, he was being hunted down, and the Liang family members who followed him were all dead. Liang Xiaoxiao's expression suddenly changed. She moved her lips. My brother? Elder Hua Feng paused. I'm sorry. You know Lingxiao College's neutral position. Liang Xiaoxiao's legs went soft and she almost fell. An elder beside her hurriedly supported her. Liang Xiaoxiao only felt a burst of coldness from the depths of her heart. Something surged from the bottom of her eyes, causing her vision to become blurry. She opened her mouth, but found that she couldn't say anything. Only gusts of cold wind poured in from between her lips and teeth. It was so cold that her internal organs seemed to curl up. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly turned around and looked at Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Jiwan's heart skipped a beat, and she looked away guiltily. But, Yuan said before, she didn't see my brother and the others. Liang Xiaoxiao gritted her teeth and said. Elder Huafeng followed her gaze and sighed. Actually, you can't blame her for this. After all, you two have been good friends for many years. She doesn't want you to be sad. Ling Xiaoxiao almost laughed out loud. Afraid that she would be sad? Didn't Jiang Jiwan ask those words on purpose? Why is she pretending to be a good person now? Elder Huafeng, I wonder if you can tell me who killed my brother? Liang Xiaoxiao clenched her hands and asked word by word. Elder Huafeng paused. At that time, your brother specially asked Jiang Jiwan for help. She stayed on the spot for a long time. She should be the clearest about it. Jiang Jiwan raised her head in shock and panic. Elder Huafeng, how can you say that? Elder Huafeng blinked and seemed to be slightly helpless. This is a matter of great importance. You have to tell the truth, right? Jiang Jiwan was at a loss for words. She hurriedly ran over and rushed to Liang Xiaoxiao. Xiaoxiao, listen to my explanation. A loud slap sounded. Jiang Jiwan lost her balance and fell to the ground. Half of her face quickly turned red and swollen. However, she was already in a sorry state, so it wasn't particularly obvious when she went up. Liang Xiaoxiao was furious. She wanted to tear Jiang Jiwan apart. Liang Xiaokong didn't enter Lingxiao College, so he wasn't familiar with the elders and the others in the college. Among those people, he was most familiar with Jiang Jiwan. Of course, Liang Xiaoxiao knew that her third brother had feelings for Jiang Jiwan. However, Jiang Jiwan was proud and refused to agree, so Liang Xiaoxiao didn't interfere too much in this matter. However, this didn't mean that she didn't know how much Jiang Jiwan had received from her third brother. In the end, this was how Jiang Jiwan repaid her third brother? Jiang Ziyuan was stunned by the slap. She thought that victory was in her hands, but she didn't expect Elder Huafeng to be so ruthless and directly reveal everything. Reveal everything to the world. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1392. What should I do now? Jiang Ziyuan desperately tried to think of a solution, but to her despair, she found that she had been pushed into a hopeless situation. Elder Huafeng had taken the initiative to make the first move, so it was inevitable that he would make Liang Xiaoxiao believe his words and think that all of this was her fault. However, the real culprits were those people from Lingyun Mountain. Moreover, she was not the only one who stood by and did nothing. Why did Liang Xiaoxiao push all the blame onto her? Xiaoxiao, you've misunderstood. I had no choice at that time. Jiang Jiwan covered her face as blood slowly seeped out of the corner of her mouth. How could I be a match for those people? Liang Xiaoxiao stepped forward and grabbed Jiang Jiwan's collar, her eyes red. Those people? Who are they? Jiang Jiwan was about to say something when she saw Elder Huafeng looking at her from the corner of her eye. He raised his eyebrows and revealed a faint smile. She suddenly shivered. But she could not say it. If the words Lingyun Mountain came out of her mouth, then she would definitely suffer from Lingyun Mountain's revenge in the future. Lingyun Mountain was a true first-rate family. Not to mention her, even the entire Jiang family in the Immortal Water Tomb was no match for them. She must not get involved in this big trouble. But I don't know. Jiang Jiwan's mouth was filled with a thick sweet taste that made her want to vomit. At that time, they were all in disguise. I didn't recognize them. Bang! Liang Xiaoxiao threw Jiang Jiwan to the ground. Although she was not as strong as Jiang Jiwan was already at the end of her rope. She did not even have the strength to fight back and could only be humiliated by the other party. Liang Xiaoxiao's chest rose and fell violently, obviously still angry. She pointed at Jiang Jiwan and smiled coldly. Good. Jiang Jiwan, I've seen through you today. From now on I, Liang Xiaoxiao, and the entire Liang family are irreconcilable with you. Jiang Jiwan's heart thumped. What would happen if he was targeted by a first-rate family? She didn't need to use her brain to know. But this matter was clearly led by Elder Huafeng and the others, so what did it have to do with her? At that time, no one present made a move. Suddenly, a white light flashed through Jiang Jiwan's mind. She suddenly understood something. Liang Xiaoxiao did it on purpose. Growing up in such a big family and being doted on so much, Liang Xiaoxiao was obviously not as stupid as she looked on the surface. In fact, she was very smart. She knew that this matter was related to the academy, but she didn't want to become enemies with the academy. Moreover, the academy was famous in the Divine Ruins world for having a high profile and never getting involved in the affairs of any aristocratic family or clan. It was understandable that they would do this. However, someone had to be held responsible for this matter. Then, she, Jiang Jiwan, had become the scapegoat. In this way, she could maintain a stable relationship with the academy and avenge Liang Xiaokong. Why not? Jiang Jiwan wanted to support herself to stand up, but after trying a few times, she found that her body was trembling violently. How did things turn out like this? She was clearly the one who had the upper hand before, but now, Elder Huafeng finally spoke again. Xiao, actually, you can't blame her entirely for this matter. Although your brother begged her for a long time, you should be able to imagine that she was also injured at that time. How could she take care of your brother? Jiang Jiwan simply wanted to rush up and tear Elder Huafeng's mouth apart. Stop talking. Did he think that her situation wasn't miserable enough? If this continued, how could she survive in the Divine Ruins world? A cold light flashed through Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes. Don't worry. Before the matter is investigated clearly, I won't do anything to her. But after the investigation, it would be hard to say. Jiang Jiwan's heart was in a mess. What else could she do in this situation? Suddenly, she raised her head and looked past the crowd at the tall man in black. Right now, he was probably the only one who could help her. Your Highness! Jiang Jiwan used all her strength and shouted loudly as 2 streams of tears flowed down. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she suddenly stood up and rushed over. Although her footsteps were staggering, her speed wasn't slow. Because it was too sudden, by the time everyone reacted, she had already rushed a distance away. Elder Huafeng's face turned cold. He took a step forward and blocked in front of Jiang Jiwan. He angrily rebuked, Jiang Ji, are you crazy? Jiang Jiwan was unable to get past him. She was extremely anxious and her voice became even sharper. Your Highness, say something please. Could it be that you really have the heart to watch all of this happen? The Immortal Water Tomb is one of your 28 divisions. Even if you don't want to give face to the monk, you have to give face to the Buddha, Your Highness. Everyone looked at Rong Xiu. Jiang Jiwan's words weren't without reason. The Immortal Water Tomb was one of the strongest and most powerful of the Yuntian Tower's many divisions, and Jiang Jiwan was the apple of Jiang Hetian's eye. If Rong Xiu really made up his mind to speak up for her, then everyone still had to give face. Rong Xiu first glanced at the person in his arms. A faint mark appeared between her eyebrows, and her eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was dreaming of something unsettling. Rong Xiu held her in his arms, then immediately turned around and looked up slightly. That pair of phoenix eyes was cold and deep, wrapped in an astonishing chill. Jiang Jiwan was swept by this gaze and actually shivered. She opened her mouth, and her sharp and piercing voice suddenly became much weaker. Your Highness, you disturbed her sleep. Rong Xiu said coldly. Digression, tomorrow at 12, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1393. The surroundings were silent. Jiang Jiwan opened her mouth slightly, her pale lips trembling in disbelief. She wanted to say something, but found that her throat was dry and her chest was tight. She couldn't say a word. Her face was burning. Rong Xiu's words were even more embarrassing than Liang Xiaoxiao's slap. Disturbed. Choose sleep? Could it be that her safety was not as important as that person's sleep? Jiang Jiwan didn't ask this question, because she had already seen the answer from Rong Xiu's impatient and cold face. Those phoenix eyes looking at her were cold and emotionless, distant and indifferent, without even the slightest bit of friendship. Jiang Jiwan's strength seemed to have been sucked out of her body in an instant, and her whole body went limp on the ground. No one went to help her. The snow on the ground was so cold that it seemed to seep into her bones and blood. It was so cold that she shivered all over. Rong Xiu had already retracted his gaze and continued to walk forward with the person in his arms. Not far in front of them was the transportation portal to return. Her current situation wasn't too good. She had to return to the academy as soon as possible. Seeing that resolute and cold back, Jiang Jiwan's hands clenched tightly. Finally, she couldn't help but raise her head and unwillingly and resentfully asked, "Your Highness, are you really going to abandon the Immortal Water Mausoleum?" The Immortal Water Mausoleum was the head of the 28 divisions. It was of great significance to the Yuntian Tower. She didn't believe that Rong Xiu would be willing to take this risk for Chuyu. Rong Xiu stood still on the transportation portal. His arms moved slightly, and the person in his arms shifted into a more comfortable position. Then he raised his eyes and glanced at Jiang Jiwan. That glance was extremely cold and indifferent. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, containing a hint of a smile. But it seemed to be wrapped in frost, making one's heart feel cold. "Before that, it's best that you think about how to tell your father about yourself," Chu Feng said. Jiang Jiwan suddenly widened her eyes. In that instant, something in her heart seemed to collapse. In the past, she was the apple of her father's eye. She was one of the top figures in the entire mausoleum of immortal water. Even if her father favored her, no one would say anything. But things were different now. She had been abandoned by Elder Danqing and was about to be expelled from Lingxiao College. Not to mention, there was also Liang Xiaoxiao's entanglement. Even if his father was willing to bear the responsibility, what about the others? She was no longer the person she used to be, and she no longer had all the privileges she used to have. At that time, why would the entire Immortal Water Mausoleum challenge the Yuntian Tower for her? There had never been a moment when Jiang Jiwan clearly understood that she really had nothing left. She had lost everything on this trip to the desolate north. "Let's go." Elder Bo Yen could not be bothered with him. He turned around and gestured for everyone to follow and enter the teleportation array. Elder Huafeng wasn't in a hurry. He walked through the crowd and arrived in front of Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Jiwan seemed to have sensed something. She raised her head to look at him and met Elder Huafeng's seemingly kind but actually mocking gaze. "Jiang Jiwan, you've always been smart and quick-witted. Your master has praised you more than once for your lively mind. Unfortunately, you don't understand that sometimes, cleverness overcomes cleverness. You have too many thoughts that you shouldn't have. It's harmful to yourself." Jiang Jiwan's throat choked. She suddenly stepped forward as if she wanted to grab the corner of Elder Huafeng's clothes. Elder Huafeng calmly took a step back and avoided her hand. Jiang Juan missed and the snow splashed on her face, making her look even more miserable. "Elder Huafeng, I beg you, please give me another chance." Jiang Jiwan couldn't care about anything else at this time. She could only beg for mercy. Even if she could salvage a little, it would be good. "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Please, please let me go this time." How could she be so stupid? She actually wanted to threaten Elder Huafeng to protect everything she had. Behind Elder Huafeng, there was still the entire Ling Shao Academy backing him up. What did she have? Elder Huafeng seemed to be smiling, but his voice was very calm. "What's done can't be undone. How can you take back what you've said?" Jiang Jiwan's body stiffened as if she was frozen inch by inch. She suddenly couldn't say the rest of her words. Other than being a joke, what was the use? Elder Huafeng looked at her condescendingly and then turned to look at Elder Danqing. From the beginning to the end, he didn't look over. It could be seen that he was really disappointed in Jianghu. Since you've been a student in the school for a few years, I can help you send a message back to the Immortal Water Mausoleum and ask them to send someone to pick you up as soon as possible. Oh, this is a piece of cake, so you don't have to thank me. With that, Elder Huafeng turned around and left with a smile. Jiang Jiwan's mind was in a mess. There was only one sentence left that kept lingering in her mind. It's over. It's completely over. I wonder what Jiang Jiwan did to be hated so much. Luo Shishir got on the teleportation formation and couldn't help but mutter when she caught a glimpse of Jiang Jiwan lying in the snow with a face full of despair. No matter what it is, it's not a good thing. Luo Yenlin smiled at the side. Elder Danqing treats her like a daughter and has always doted on her. To be able to force him to cut off their master-disciple relationship. That Jiang Jiwan is indeed capable. Luo Shishir nodded. Judging from the reactions of the other elders in the school, Jiang Jiwan probably wouldn't be able to stay in Lingshao College after she returned. A good hand of cards has been played to a pulp. That's all there is to it. Thinking back to the past Jiang Jiwan, how glorious and proud she was. But now, she was so hated by others. In the future, it would be very difficult for her to have a place in the Divine Ruins world. I really don't know how she got to this point. Although Luo Shishir wasn't very familiar with her, she felt rather emotional when she thought of the great difference between her and before. Why are you thinking so much? Luo Yenlin gently knocked on her forehead. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with us. Just take a look. As the outstanding son of the Luo family who was very likely to inherit the position of the head of the family, Luo Yenlin had always been proud. He had never taken someone like Jiang Jiwan seriously. She was just a clown. Luo Shishir responded obediently. She curled her fingers and couldn't help but look in another direction. Even though there were so many people, she could still see Rong Xiu at a glance. He was very tall, and when he stood in a crowd, he would always stand out like a crane among chickens. Not to mention that handsome and devilish face that seemed to have been meticulously carved by the heavens at any time, seemed to gather all the splendor and brilliance, causing everything around him to dim in comparison. This teleportation formation wasn't small, but with so many people standing together, it was still a little crowded. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around Rong Xiu, making it difficult for people to get close. Cold, noble, disdainful. It was as if standing closer would be blasphemy. Chu Yu was in his arms, and his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. Luo Shishir bit her lip. I wonder how Chu Yu is doing now. A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 1394. Luo Yenlin followed her line of sight and narrowed his eyes slightly. He and Rong Xiu entered the academy around the same time, so they were of the same generation. However, they didn't interact much with each other. Of course, Rong Xiu's personality was like that, and it was the same for others. Other than occasionally going out to train or carry out missions together, they would only meet a few times at the beginning of the month during the assessment. Ever since Rong Xiu was ranked first on the Azure Sky roll, he rarely came out. With Rong Xiu taking care of him personally, nothing will happen to that kid. Luo Yenlin said as he took out a jade bottle and stuffed it into his sister's hand. You're so focused on him that you forgot to take your own medicine? His gaze fell on Luo Shishir meaningfully. Luo Shishir immediately felt guilty and quickly opened the jade bottle, poured out a pill, and ate it. No, I just feel that. Senior Rong Xiu and Chui have a good relationship. He has never treated anyone like this before, right? The holy son of the Yuntian Tower was known for his decisiveness and ruthlessness. Even in the academy, when he restrained his aura, he still made people feel that there was a distance between them. Luo Yenlin touched his chin. Actually, you can't say that. There was a person in the past, and Rong Xiu treated that person like... At this point, he suddenly paused. What? Luo Shishir's eyes were filled with curiosity. Could it be that there was someone in the world who was better taken care of by Rong Xiu? That was truly unbelievable. Rong Xiu was a natural king, like an iceberg that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years. It was difficult for others to even get close to him, let alone other things. It was hard to imagine that he would treat someone well. Now that he treated Chuyu like this, it was shocking enough. If there was something worse, then, bam. Luo Yenlin knocked on her head again, this time with more force. Luo Shishir hurriedly covered her forehead in pain. Fourth brother, you, little girl, there are some things you can ask, but there are some things you don't know, understand? Luo Yenlin warned with a smile, but his eyes were very serious. Luo Shishir pursed her lips and muttered, "Got it." Luo Yenlin glanced over and quickly retracted his gaze. Everyone boarded the teleportation array and began their return journey. Everyone was in small groups, whispering to each other. Most of them were talking about the trip to the north of the primordial world. Especially when Elder Hua Feng, Elder Bo Yen, and the others gathered together and chatted even more seriously. After all, they still wanted to find out who was behind this. Lingxiao College had suffered a great loss this time, and they would not let it go so easily. Only Jiang Jiwan was left alone in the corner. No one spoke to her, making her seem very cold and cheerless. However, there were quite a number of people who kept looking at them in private. Most of them were mocking and ridiculing him, as if they were watching a good show. Jiang Jiwan lowered her head. She had to use all her strength to restrain the impulse in her heart. She couldn't go on like this. The outcome had already been decided. What awaited her was probably the worst possible outcome. If she still had anyone to rely on. Suddenly, her eyes flickered. That's right. How could she forget that there was still that person? The journey back was dull and boring. In addition, everyone was more or less injured, so the atmosphere was gloomy. It was completely different from the excitement they had when they came. The waiting time seemed to have become exceptionally long. After an unknown period of time, a light finally appeared in front of them. Elder Bo Yen called out loudly, "We're about to return to the academy. Everyone, get ready to go out." Yes. Immediately after, several elders made their moves together. The Xian formation at the exit suddenly split open from the middle. Elder Hua Feng and the others rushed out one after another. Rong Xiu looked at the person in his arms. Chu Luiwei was still asleep. However, compared to before, her pale and haggard face had regained a trace of rosy color, and she seemed to be much better. Moreover, the aura on her body was also faintly strengthening. Rong Xiu's hand tightened slightly, and then with a tap of his foot, his figure flew out quickly. "Hua Feng, you're back." The elders who had been waiting around the teleportation formation for a long time were all energized when they saw them. Only the heavens knew how hard they had been waiting during this period of time. But soon, they realized that something was wrong. Elder Bo Yen and the others who followed behind him were actually more or less injured. It looked like they had just experienced a great ordeal. "You guys, what happened to you guys?" The elders looked at each other and felt vaguely uneasy. Elder Hua Feng shook his head. "It's a long story. First, send the students back to recuperate. We'll talk about other things later." Seeing his rare serious expression, the elders didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly took action. Some of the students who were lightly injured obeyed and went back. There were also a few who were in more serious condition and were escorted back by the elders. The more they looked, the more shocked they became. Didn't they say that they would only ask Elder Hua Feng and the others to support the Heavenly Square Cauldron? How did it end up like this? Anyone could see that the situation was definitely much worse than they had expected. Rong Xiu? When the tall and slender figure appeared, the faces of the elders were filled with astonishment. When did he go over there? What was even more shocking was that he was carrying someone in his arms. Chuyu? An elder stood close and recognized the person with sharp eyes. Because it was too unbelievable, the tone of his voice changed a little. Rong Xiu nodded lightly at the elders and then walked forward. "I'll take her back to rest." "Ah?" Before anyone could react, Rong Xiu had already left with his people. "Hey Rong Xiu, wait for me." Elder Wan Zheng hurriedly followed after him. Their figures quickly disappeared behind the undulating mountain peaks, leaving behind a bewildered expression on everyone's faces. After a long while, someone stammered, What's going on?" Elder Bo Yen laughed bitterly. If only he knew. Moreover, he didn't want to figure it out now. Inside, there would be a lot of problems. Rong Xiu has always known his limits. Don't worry about him. Let's clean up this mess first. Hearing Elder Bo Yan's words, the others didn't ask any more questions and only responded in unison. Rong Xiu directly brought Chu Luiyue back to his residence. After entering the room, he carefully put her down. Elder Wan Zheng hurriedly followed behind them. Rong Xiu, how's Chuyu? Rong Xiu covered her with a blanket and gently rubbed his finger on her soft hand twice before putting her hand under the blanket. This action was extremely subtle, and because his back was facing Elder Wan Zheng, the latter didn't notice. When Elder Wan Zheng walked over, Rong Xiu straightened his body and placed a hand on Rong Xiu's forehead. The fever seems to have subsided a little, but I don't know when she'll wake up. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1395. Why is there no sign of him waking up after such a long journey? Elder Wan Zheng's heart ached and he was worried. The Chuyu he saw was always alive and kicking, cunning and quick-witted. However, the Chuyu now lay quietly and weakly on the bed. He was as fragile as glass that would shatter at the slightest touch. How can this be? What did this child go through? Rong Xiu paused and tucked Chu Luiyue in. Elder Wan Zheng, let's talk outside. He would disturb her if he stayed. Elder Wan Zheng quickly nodded in agreement. Let's go outside and let him rest. He deliberately lowered his voice when he said this, as if he was afraid that he would disturb Chu Luiyue. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly. Please go ahead. Elder Wan Zheng was very reluctant. He looked back 3 times with every step. It was only when Rong Xiu said that he had set up a Xian formation that he would know immediately if anything happened inside that Elder Wan Zheng was relieved. The two of them walked out and sat down on the stone bench in the courtyard. I know you have a lot of questions. If there's anything you want to ask, just say it. Rong Xiu will tell you everything he knows. After sitting down, Rong Xiu went straight to the point. He was very sincere in front of Elder Wan Zheng. If it was someone else, it would have been fine. However, Elder Wan Zheng was Chu Luiyue's master now. He was one of the people who had the most right to care about her. Elder Wan Zheng was indeed full of questions. There were too many things he wanted to ask. However, when he heard Rong Xiu's words, he did not know where to start. After thinking seriously for a while, he sorted out his thoughts and finally asked, "How's Chu Yu's condition now?" He had been in such a hurry that he had forgotten to take Chu Yu's pulse personally. However, Rong Xiu was also a celestial physician. He was also the one who brought Chu Yu back. He should know better. Rong Xiu said, "Don't worry about that. Her body is fine." Although he had suffered some injuries before, he could recover quickly after recuperating for a period of time. He paused slightly. As you know, she just broke through to the 9th stage. At this time, the recovery ability and so on were all very strong. Not to mention her. Hearing this, Elder Wan Zheng let out a sigh of relief. He clenched and loosened his hand. Countless complicated emotions flashed through his eyes. In the end, he could only shake his head and sigh. I don't know whether I should be worried about him or happy for him. In just a few days, Chu Yu had broken through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior. He had already heard about it from Elder Huafeng. It was just that he was more worried at that time, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that everyone had returned and Chu Yu's condition seemed to have stabilized, he finally realized how shocking this matter was. How many people in the world could encounter such a fortuitous encounter? This time, so many people went to the northern border of the great desolate land, but in the end, they all returned in failure. Only Chu Yu, who didn't even have the time to follow at the beginning, became the winner. This brat's luck is really extraordinary. When he woke up and thought about it, Elder Wan Zheng could only use the word luck to describe this matter. He was already shocked enough when he saw that kid break through to the 8th stage with his own eyes. He didn't expect that not long after he would actually, according to his speed, he might suddenly break through to the divine realm and become a divine rank expert one day. Elder Wan Zheng relaxed a little and couldn't help but tease. Rong Xiu's eyes drooped slightly as his thin lips curled up. Maybe. Anyway, as long as he's fine, this old man's heart will be at ease. Elder Wan Zheng wiped the sweat off his forehead. By the way, Hua Feng and the others said that Chu Yu was called away by a group of mysterious men in black. Do you know anything about it? After all, he was saved by Rong Xiu. If there was anyone who knew anything, it would be him. Rong Xiu shook his head and said the same thing as before. When I went, I didn't see their so-called master. Moreover, the other party was very cunning and didn't leave any clues. This is difficult, Elder Wan Zheng frowned. If that's the case, we can only wait for Chu Yu to wake up before we can find out anything. But who knew when he would wake up? Rong Xiu smiled. You don't have to worry. I will take good care of him during this period of time. When he wakes up, perhaps, everything will have an answer. Elder Wan Zheng nodded. That's the only way. Oh right, there's one more thing. As he spoke, he looked at Rong Xiu hesitantly. You and Chu Yu? What is your relationship? Elder Wan Zheng was very conflicted when he asked this question. Previously, he only thought that the two of them were close friends. Rong Xiu took care of Chu Yu as his younger brother. But judging from the situation in the past few days, it was clear that Rong Xiu's eyes flickered. There seemed to be waves in his deep almond-shaped eyes. After a long while, his lips curled into a smile. She is very important to me. To be more precise, she was the most important person to him. Elder Wan Zheng was stunned. It was very rare for Rong Xiu to say something like this. After all, this was a person who could kill the people of the Yuntian Tower without blinking an eye. Rong Xiu obviously didn't want to reveal too much, so Elder Wan Zheng knew that he shouldn't ask any more. He thought about Rong Xiu's words carefully several times in his heart and finally looked at him. That's good. As long as Rong Xiu could protect him, what else did it matter? According to Chu Yu's character, he might get into trouble in the future. Just like this time, those people didn't choose anyone and only took him away. If it wasn't for Rong Xiu, he really didn't know what the result would be. Elder Wan Zheng stood up. Everyone has just returned and there are many things to deal with. During this period, it should be more chaotic outside. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Chu Yu. Rong Xiu also stood up and nodded slightly. Don't worry. The entire Lingxiao College was indeed chaotic. More than 300 students and elders had walked on the line of life and death. They had almost been completely wiped out in the primordial north region. This was something that the college had never encountered in hundreds of years. In addition to comforting everyone, Elder Bo Yen and the others had already started to investigate this matter. The main point was the news of the appearance of the Heavenly Square Sacred Cauldron. Where did it come from? The person who spread this fake news was basically the mastermind behind this. The atmosphere of the entire college became tense. Everyone was on high alert. Even the air seemed to have frozen. And in this serious and cold atmosphere, something else happened that caused waves in everyone's hearts. Jianghu of the Jiang family of the Immortal Water Hill was officially expelled from Lingxiao College. Digression, 6:00 p.m., mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1396. Thanks to Elder Huafeng's enthusiastic help, the Immortal Water Mausoleum received the news immediately. Jianghu rushed to the school as fast as he could. Lingxiao College was in a critical period and was heavily guarded. No one could enter or leave as they pleased. According to Elder Bo Yen, they should have sent Jiang Ji1 out of the school and let the Jiang family pick her up from Fang State City. However, considering that the matter was blown out of proportion and would be bad for the school's reputation, they let her in. Of course, only Jiang Hetian was allowed to enter the school. The rest of the Jiang family who came with him were all kept out of the barrier. Jiang Hetian felt deeply humiliated, but with the matter at hand, he couldn't care less. In a hall in the school. As soon as Jiang Hetian entered, he saw several elders seated. His precious daughter, Jiang Ji1, was standing alone in the middle of the hall. The atmosphere was stagnant and seemed to be freezing. Jiang Hetian's heart sank. This atmosphere was enough to explain too many things. Jiang Hetian of the Immortal Water Mausoleum greets the elders. He suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and bowed politely as usual. Hearing the voice, Jiang Jiwan trembled and slowly turned around. The father and daughter looked at each other. Jiang Hetian's heart trembled violently, because the current Jiang Jiwan was too haggard and disheveled. Her face, neck, and even wrists were clearly marked with scars. Her bright, watery eyes were bloodshot and even a little sluggish. There were dark circles under her eyes, and it was obvious that she didn't sleep well. Xuan. Jiang Hetian's heart ached. He hurried a few steps to Jiang Jiwan's side. What happened to you? Seeing his anxious face, Jiang Jiwan's nose twitched, and she couldn't help but cry. Father, I'm sorry. Her reaction made Jiang Hetian even more worried and nervous. He patted her shoulder lightly and whispered a few comforting words. Don't worry, I'll definitely uphold justice for you this time. As he spoke, he took a step forward and cupped his hands at the elders present. Elders, if you want to remove Ziyuan's name, you should at least give a reason, right? What's going to happen to her in the future? In the message that Lingxiao College had sent to him, they had only mentioned that they would be expelled, but they had not explained the reason. This was what puzzled him the most. He knew that not long ago, Wei Shiping's name had also been removed. However, everyone knew the reason. Even now, Wei Shiping did not have the face to return to the Qinggu family way. But when it came to them, how could they be so muddle-headed? He had to get an explanation. Elder Hua Feng smiled. Patriarch Jiang, it must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Why don't you sit down and talk? Jiang Hetian refused. I won't be sitting. Elders, if you have something to say, just say it. He was so angry that he didn't even want to give her any face. However, Elder Hua Feng didn't care about this at all. He nodded and did not continue to persuade him. Patriarch Jiang, to be honest, it's because we want to save some face for you and the Immortal Water Tomb that we didn't announce the reason. If you must know, why don't you ask Jiang Jiwan yourself? Jiang Hetian's heart sank when he heard this. The other party's attitude was so calm. Could it be that Jiang Jiwan really did something wrong? Oh, right, there's something that you might not know yet. Elder Hua Feng reminded him. Before she was expelled, Elder Dan Qing took the lead in severing his master-disciple relationship with her. These words were undoubtedly adding insult to injury. Jiang Hetian was originally full of anger, but when he heard these words, he couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. He looked at Jiang Jiwan suspiciously. Xin, what's going on? Jiang Jiwan knelt on the ground with a plop. Father, I was just confused for a moment. Please help me beg the elders and master. I don't want to leave the academy. I can't be expelled. Her tearful appearance made Jiang Hetian's remaining half of his heart turn cold. If you don't want to say it, this old man will. Elder Dan Qing, who had been silent, finally spoke. His gaze slowly swept over Jiang Ziyuan's body. His tone was calm, as if he was just talking about an unimportant matter. At that time, we arrived at the northern border of the primordial world together and were attacked halfway. Jiang Jun betrayed us in order to survive alone. Jiang Jiwan's face turned ashen. At that time, all of us planned to split into two groups and escape separately. Jiang Jiwan was the first to be caught by the other party, and then, she told the other party everything. Then, while the other party wasn't paying attention, she ran away alone. With every word that Elder Danqing said, Jiang Jiwan's despair surged up a little more, and in the end, she was completely swallowed up. She's quite lucky. After such a torment, she actually managed to survive. However, I heard that it also caused a lot of trouble for Hua Feng and the others. Compared to what you guys did, we're nothing. Elder Hua Feng waved his hand as if he didn't care. She just killed a nine-tailed blue crow and almost caused us to die under the claws of the nine-tailed blue crows. This understatement of sarcasm made Jiang Hetian feel as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat, and his face turned green and white. Elder Danqing looked at him and sipped his tea unhurriedly. Now, Patriarch Jiang, do you still want an explanation? Peng Min Mountain. It was as quiet as ever. Even though the outside was turbulent, no one dared to come here to disturb them. Inside the tower, In an empty room, the 7 fan doors floated quietly. A faint glow shone on the black jade floor, pure and holy. Suddenly, a slight fluctuation came from one of the doors. This movement immediately attracted Elder Meng's attention. A deep and old voice sounded in the room, with a hint of puzzlement. As time passed, the ripples on the door gradually grew stronger. Even the entire door frame started to tremble slightly. It was as if something was about to rush out. Could it be that the girl is back? Elder Meng's voice was filled with shock and surprise. Other than her, no one else could cause such a commotion. But why wasn't there any news from outside? If that girl was really back, Bo Yen and the others should have come to tell him long ago. The power inside began to hit the door, as if it was trying to break free. As expected, you're still as restless as her. Elder Meng snorted softly. An invisible and majestic force suddenly converged from all directions, enveloping the door within. Being suppressed, the fluctuation on the door gradually decreased. However, after a moment of silence, there was another sound of impact from behind the door. Dong dong, dong dong. One sound, one after another, was extremely rhythmic. In the calmness, there was passion and intensity. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1397. In the end, Jiang Hetian still left Lingxiao College with Jiang Jiwan. The father and daughter came out of the hall and walked to the boundary of the college without saying a word. Elder Hua Feng originally planned to send them off, but in the end, Jiang Hetian declined. After being humiliated to this extent, he really didn't have the face to face these Lingxiao College elders anymore. The only thing he wanted to do now was to take Jiang Jiwan and leave this place as soon as possible. In the middle, there were a few students who bumped into this scene, but they just stood there and pointed. They didn't have the slightest intention of coming over to say hello or say goodbye. Those scattered strange gazes and sarcastic mockery were like a nightmare, shrouding the hearts of Jiang Ziwan and her father, and they couldn't get rid of it. The 2 elders in charge of guarding the boundary didn't deliberately make things difficult for them. After seeing that it was them, they simply responded and opened the boundary. Jiang Hetian took the lead and stepped out. He couldn't stay in this place for a moment longer. Jiang Jiwan stood in place, but dilly-dallied. She was somewhat reluctant to part with them. She couldn't help but look back. The towering Donghuang Bell Tower, the wide and clean Qingming Square, and the rolling mountains filled with the force of heaven and earth. At this moment, a figure appeared on the Donghuang Bell Tower. Elder Bo Yen. He waved his long sleeves, and on the black wall of the Donghuang Bell Tower, the Qingyun ranking appeared. Countless names that were emitting a faint glow were shining on it. That was glory and also glory. Many people in the college looked over. Jiang Jiwan saw her name. But in the next moment, those 3 words quickly dimmed, as if drifting with the wind. Removed in public. This was the greatest humiliation he had ever suffered. Jiang Jiwan staggered and almost fell to the ground. A wave of unwillingness and resentment surged in her heart. Jiang Jiwan's hands couldn't help but clench in her sleeves. She had stayed here for several years. How could she not be reluctant to leave? It was precisely because of her outstanding performance in Lingxiao College that she could be looked up to and envied by everyone. But from today onwards, everything would vanish into thin air. The pride, the glory, the praise. Everything would be reduced to nothing. Originally, she should have gotten the best. Jiang Hetian could not help but urge. His voice was a little cold, as if he was forcibly suppressing something. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses and quickly turned around. However, just as he took a step forward, he was stopped by another elder. Jiang Jiwan looked up blankly. The other party stretched out a hand. His face was expressionless, and his tone was businesslike. Since you've been expelled from the academy, your pass will also be confiscated. Jiang Jiwan felt extremely embarrassed. This feeling of being chased out mercilessly like a stray dog, how disgusting. She had never thought that she would have such a day. But no matter how dissatisfied she was, She didn't dare to go against the other party's wishes. She took out her black jade token and handed it over. The other party took the token, but found that Jiang Jiwan was still holding it tightly. He frowned impatiently. It's time to let go. Huh? Jiang Jun was extremely reluctant, but she could only retreat as if her hand had been scalded. Then take care of yourselves, elders. I'll leave with my father first. Before she could finish, the two elders had already waved their sleeves and closed the barrier. The rest of Jiang Jiwan's words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say anything else. Jiang Hetian's expression finally turned completely cold. Jiang Jiwan was humiliated, but how could he not be implicated? The other party's expression was clearly thrown at him and his daughter, as well as the entire mausoleum of immortals. However, the one who was in the wrong was Jiang Jiwan. Lingxiao College had already been extremely benevolent by not publicizing the reason. Let's go. Jiang Hetian turned to leave, his expression cold. Jiang Jiwan trembled. All these years, her father had never treated her like this. Her heart clenched. She felt that during this period of time, she had really suffered all the hardships and grievances of her life. Father, Jiang Hetian shot her an extremely cold look. If you have anything to say it when we get back. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Jiang Ziyuan was dumbfounded by the words that hit her in the face. The fire in her heart that had been suppressed for so long finally burst forth. I'm not going back. You're not going back. Jiang Hetian couldn't help but sneer. Then where do you want to go? Don't tell me you're still delusional about going back to Lingxiao College? After being expelled from Lingxiao College, one could imagine her situation in the world of gods from now on. He had invested so much energy and resources in her, but now it was all for naught. He still didn't know how to face those troublesome fellows in the Mausoleum of Immortals when he returned. Jiang Jiwan took a deep breath. I want to go to the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian froze, his brows furrowed. Why are you going to the Yuntian Tower? Running away is not a solution, I'm not running away. Jiang Juan ran her fingers through her hair, her tone unusually firm. Father, I want to go to the Patriarch. Jiang Hetian finally realized something. But the Patriarch has been in seclusion for several years. What's the use of you going now? Then I'll wait until the Patriarch comes out. In any case, it was not appropriate for her to go anywhere, so she might as well wait. Now, the only person who could help her was the Patriarch. And only when she went to the Yuntian Tower would the Liang family have some scruples. Even if they wanted to do something to her, they had to get past this hurdle first. Rong Xiu was unwilling to help her, but it didn't mean that she couldn't rely on the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian's expression finally softened a little. This was indeed the best solution at the moment. Are you sure you can stay there and wait for the Patriarch to come out? Jiang Jiwan nodded firmly. As long as you go to the honorable elders and plead with them to send me there, it'll be fine. Also, I might be able to investigate Shangguan Yu's background. You still want to investigate that? Jiang Hetian disagreed. The people who were sent to investigate the Shangguan Yu had never returned. What could Jiang Jiwan find out on her own? In the end, she could only alert the enemy. You should take care of yourself first. Jiang Jiwan was taken aback by her father's reaction, but she still followed his advice. I understand. Jiang Hetian looked at his daughter's submissive expression and felt both heartache and anger. Forget it. Let's go to the Yuntian Tower. But if you continue to be like this... He swung his sleeves and turned to leave. Jiang Jiwan suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and quickly followed him. On the other hand, Rong Xiu sent Elder Wan Zheng away. He stood halfway up the mountain with his hands behind his back. The removal of Jiang Jiwan's name from the Donghuang Clock Tower caused quite a commotion in the academy. Everyone gathered in groups of 3 to 5, talking about something. Rong Xiu's expression did not change. He looked up slightly and looked at the top of the tower. There was a name that had been erased. There was a surging undercurrent inside. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1398. Lingxiao College began to deal with the follow-up matters. On the other side, many aristocratic families and clans who were still in the northern region of the primitive wilderness finally realized that something was wrong. The huge tomb was surrounded by a crowd of people. It was quiet. Finally, someone couldn't help but stand up. Forget it. If any of you want to continue staying here, you can continue to stay here. I won't keep you company. This sentence instantly broke the precarious balance on the scene. Everyone looked over and couldn't help but feel nervous. Jianghu glanced at him coldly and snorted. What? You can't stand it anymore? Didn't they say that they would open the barrier together? Now you want to quit? But it's up to you. With one less person, there would be less competition. The other party didn't show any weakness. Jianghu, don't be too optimistic. There are so many of us. How long have we been here? Haven't we made any progress? I think ordinary people can't enter this damn place at all. Staying here is just a waste of energy. Jianghu's face became a little ugly, because he knew that the other party was telling the truth. Many people looked at each other. In fact, after such a long time, they had already been nervous, but they were too embarrassed to speak first, as if they were afraid of someone. Now that someone finally spoke first, they immediately relaxed their mental defenses and became active. That's not unreasonable. Even if there are really treasures in here, it's useless if we can't get in. What's more, Chuyu has already gone in to plunder. Who knows what leftovers are left? That's right. We can't wait anymore. We've wasted so much energy and time for nothing. Instead of waiting for an illusory opportunity here, it's better to go back and concentrate on cultivation. More and more people began to loosen up. Jianghu was a little flustered. If they all left, the Golden Wing sect alone would not be able to open the barrier. Of course, even if they worked together, it seemed to be useless. He glanced at the barrier with hatred. By the way, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any news from the people of Lingxiao College? The sudden sentence made everyone quiet for a moment. Indeed, they had been waiting here for several days, but the people from Lingxiao College had not returned. He didn't know how they were doing now. And Chuyu, who was taken away by the black-clothed man. They have gone back. A cold voice suddenly came from the crowd. Everyone looked over in unison. The one who spoke was the man leading the group from Mount Lingyun. How do you know? There are so many things in the northern region of the primordial wilderness that we haven't figured out yet. How could they just leave like that? Jianghu asked skeptically. Don't tell me you're just trying to fool us? The man put away the things in his hands and stood up. The Liang family had already started investigating Liang Shaokong's death. Those people from Lingxiao College had obviously gone back a long time ago. But fortunately, they still kept their word and did not expose the Spirit Charm Mountain. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. It was better to return as soon as possible and make preparations early. The group of people behind him also gathered together. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Our Lingyun Mountain will not participate in this liveliness. Please do as you please. After saying this, the man happily turned around and left with his men. The people who were left behind were stunned. Wasn't this too sudden? The figures of the people from Mount Lingyun quickly disappeared. With one side taking the lead, it was much easier for the rest to leave. Even Lingxiao College has left. Then, is there something wrong with this place? Why don't we leave too? There's really no point in staying here. As they spoke, the various forces began to leave one after another. Jianghu originally wanted to resist for a while longer, but seeing that everyone had left, he felt a little guilty. Therefore, after half a day, he tried a few more times and found that he really couldn't do anything to the barrier, so he could only give up. In the end, he left with his men. At this point, the surroundings of the tomb finally quieted down again. The wind howled, and snow fell from the sky again. The 9 dragon skeletons were motionless in the canyon, as if they had completely died. Only the silver barrier outside the tomb was flickering. It was as if something was about to wake up from its deep sleep. Mount Jianghu. Time passed slowly. Chu Luiwei had already been lying in bed for 3 days. She was completely unaware of everything that had happened outside. A barrier isolated all the noise outside. During these 3 days, Rong Xiu had always been by her side. Every morning, Elder Wan Zheng would come once to check on Chu Liyue's situation. Seeing that she hadn't woken up, Elder Wan Zheng became more and more anxious. However, in comparison, Rong Xiu didn't seem to be so anxious. Elder Wan Zheng could only temporarily suppress the emotions in his heart and wait patiently with them. Fortunately, Chu Liyue's physical condition was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. And vaguely, the aura on her body was still strengthening. Elder Wanjing only thought that it was because she had broken through in the primordial north and obtained that opportunity, so he didn't take it to heart. This kid was already able to break through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior in a few days. No matter what happened, it didn't seem to be shocking anymore. It was a pity that Chu Liyue hadn't woken up, so the Academy's investigation of the primordial north couldn't be carried out. However, with Rong Xiu around, they couldn't disturb her and could only wait outside day by day. Chu Liyue felt that she had a long dream. In the dream, she had another name and another identity. She kept hearing someone calling her. Although she couldn't hear clearly what was being called, she knew that it was her. There seemed to be someone by her side all the time. She wanted to see the other person's appearance clearly, but she couldn't. Vaguely, she felt that this person seemed to be somewhat similar to Rong Xiu, but it didn't feel completely the same. She felt a little puzzled and frowned. Later, she dreamed of a very strange scene. It was a snowy day. Goose feather-like snow fell. The world was covered in white snow, as if it had covered everything. Only one place had a special scenery. Many peach blossoms bloomed quietly in the ice and snow. The light pink petals swayed gently in the cold wind, and the stamen emitted a faint fragrance. With a light sniff, it refreshed one's heart. Against the pure silvery white background, these balls of pink looked especially lively and pleasing. Snowflakes fell on the petals, sparkling and translucent. She turned around and smiled at that person. "I told you that peach blossoms can bloom in winter." That person seemed to chuckle softly and walked towards her. Closer and closer. Clang! A sound suddenly shattered all of the illusions. Chu Liyue suddenly opened her eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.